Chris Dodson. He's the Associate Director of the Environmental Finance Center at Syracuse University up in Onondaga County. Onondaga County, a number of years ago, really started to undertake a green initiative with respect to stormwater runoff. And I'm not going to steal Chris's thunder, but they have done a tremendous job utilizing all sorts of green infrastructure designs to manage CSO and stormwater runoff to the point where they're actually this is a mid-sized city in New York, and they are a model for the nation. So Chris has really worked with the county executive there, and some of you might know one of his predecessors, Matt Malou, who has traveled the country talking about their efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Dodson.
So, I'm not sure if we're abandoning these or not, but let me see if I can open mine quickly. Maybe I should use the mouse, not the pointer. Oh yeah, there we are.
There's a button to turn it on.
Got it.
There you go.
All right, so my toes are cold, my nose is cold, but it's 15 degrees warmer here than it was when I left Syracuse this morning. The plane took off on a snow-covered runway, and it'll likely land on one this evening when I get home, hopefully in time to put the 2-year-old to bed at 7:30. So thank you for the introduction. I want to take a quick second to talk about the Environmental Finance Center and what we do. The Environmental Finance Centers were really set up in the early 90s by the EPA. There's one in every EPA region, so that makes 10 of us-ish. We really, in Syracuse, we serve-ish EPA Region 2, New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And the reason I say ish is because we also try to optimize operational efficiency. So I do a lot of stormwater work. There's folks in the EPA, the EFC in Region 3 that do a lot of stormwater work, and we work kind of at a national level on stormwater. So where one EFC might have strengths, we work with each other to build on those strengths. Our goals are really to work with local government on environmental infrastructure projects, helping you figure out the best ways to finance them, doing technical assistance and training. So that's part of the reason why I'm here today. I could talk for hours as well about finance, but I've only been given 12 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep it high level. One point I want to make is that financing green infrastructure, like green infrastructure itself, is really site-specific. You build a rain garden in a certain area depending on the soils, the volume of water it's taking, etc. Well, you're building green infrastructure at a site depending on who owns it, where the water's coming from, who's going to maintain it, who's going to fund it, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some ways that Syracuse has done it, some ways that other communities have done it, and some ways maybe that you can do it. The first way is to find academic institutions that help capture water for you. For those of you who don't know, this is the Carrier Dome, the Syracuse Orange play here. We happen to have a kind of cool basketball team. If you don't know, look it up. All the water that runs off this Carrier Dome now is used to flush down all the expensive, cheap beer that people drink and then release into our sewer system. So a stormwater or a rainwater reuse project, actually taking this water that would otherwise go straight into the combined sewer system and using it for a secondary purpose before we then put it into the storm sewer system. And so we have very large cisterns buried in the redone parking lots outside of the Carrier Dome. Parking lots aren't sexy, but if we get to redo them in upstate New York because we're putting a stormwater collection system underneath of it, it's kind of an ancillary benefit because we have a lot of potholes, because we use a lot of salt, because it snows a lot, like it did last night. So millions of gallons of water annually then kind of captured off this one project. The New York State, we have something that's called the Environmental Facilities Corporation, similar to the EIT here. This was funded to Syracuse University by our SRF manager, the state EFC. Public money used on private property for the public good, right? And that's what we're talking about. That's what we talk about in Syracuse with green infrastructure. Public investment, private investment, public good. When I talk to third graders or even residents, I talk about when was the last time you volunteered time at the sewage treatment plant? When was the last time you were asked to, kind of put some disinfectant into one of the tanks? Never. That's why we pay rates. But with green infrastructure, you can actually contribute to the public good by building a rain garden, by putting in a rain barrel, by capturing water off the roof of the Carrier Dome or some other building. So the cost of these investments upfront sometimes seems like a lot. I'd argue in another hour or so that it's not at all. But the cost of not doing these kinds of investments is much larger. The insurance costs, the public, the private costs to these kinds of damages done to our public infrastructure. Urban, this is kind of suburban, rural. I talk to rural communities all the time. The guys who spend all summer long digging the ditches along the side of County Route 6 and in anywhere upstate New York that end up getting ripped through because we've created this channel to make the water move faster, and when it moves faster, it causes more damage. The flooding that we've experienced has certainly affected all types of communities, CSO, MS4, rural. This is Syracuse after 2 inches of rain in half an hour. In April 2011, $50 million worth of damage submitted to FEMA in half an hour. Syracuse can't afford that. The people who live there can't afford that. And that doesn't include all of the other costs that this flood created. The $250 that it cost me for my 2001 Saturn that I no longer own, when I tried to actually, literally, I was here, I tried to drive here because I work over here, and the guy with the Sportster BMW, low-riding BMW, he went. I figured I could go. Well, no, it actually punctured my radiator and all my coolant drained out, so I'd spend $250, right? Only $250, but add that to the $50 million. Add the business closures and the street repair and the cost for the DPW overtime to go and remove all of the detritus that got washed down the hills, because Syracuse is a bowl, and the cost becomes so much more. Add the opportunity cost of putting an outdoors cafe next to this sometimes beautiful creek. In this picture, essentially a CSO outfall. What kind of economic development and vitality and quality of life could we have? What you don't see here are a lot of businesses kind of chomping at the bit waiting to put tables out, but they don't want to do it because no one wants to eat lunch next to raw sewage. Can't blame them, but think of the revenue loss there as well, quality of life. This is a rain garden on a residential property doing its job. That 2 inches we got in half an hour, that's that same day. So some of the benefits I want to talk about, because to me the benefits are really in where the money is, where you see the financial benefits. We have improved streetscapes. We did a 1 block long green street from sidewalk to sidewalk, capturing all the stormwater. The guy who owns 2 buildings on that street, across the street from my office, raised his square footage rates for all of his tenants by $5 a square foot. Doesn't seem like a lot. For Syracuse, it's a lot. He has 0 vacancy. There's another green street that we did where there were vacancies. Some of this is potentially coincidental. That's fine. I don't think we're building green infrastructure and people are like, oh, great, I'm investing there for that reason. But it does help increase investment. People want to build where they know the pipe's not going to explode in front of their front door of their business. 30% of businesses that close due to flooding never reopen. Why do we want to create that kind of problem in our communities? Improved streetscapes, improved economic development, improved pedestrian and vehicular mobility if you're designing streetscapes in a way that if you're digging up a street to put in stormwater measures, you're redoing that street, and you're redoing it in a smart way. Road diets, bike lanes, new sidewalks, ADA accessibility, narrower crossings for folks who need them. There's also benefit in leveraging and what I call co-funding projects, where in Syracuse, we take parks money, DPW money, county, city money, maybe some private investment, and do park improvements that include green infrastructure, pulling water off of the sidewalks and roads, treating it with green infrastructure in a park. I'll show you examples. We also have a public-private partnership. Again, public dollars invested on private property for the public good. 130 applications since March 2010. This is a county program funded locally from the ratepayers, by the ratepayers. 83 of those projects have been completed so far. We're capturing 120 million gallons to date. That number is old. And these are parking lots, these are green roofs, these are streetscapes, private investment. Also, looking at foundations, Jim Boeheim, the coach of the aforementioned basketball team that you should be looking up if you don't know it, he has a Courts for Kids program. He builds or rebuilds basketball courts in urban areas. If we keep kids busy in troubled neighborhoods, they don't get into trouble. That's the idea. So he builds basketball courts. We convinced him to build 5 with his money. We, being the county, would make up the difference between traditional asphalt for the paving of the basketball courts and the porous asphalt. Piped in water underneath into the infiltration trenches underneath the basketball courts to get extra benefit of pulling water in off the roads. Improved parks using park money, county money, and Jim Boeheim's money. He doesn't do this only in Syracuse. He does this in places like Philadelphia and Newark. Give him a call. The Connective Corridor, another example of leveraging different pots of money from different people. Syracuse University, city, state, county. 25 million gallons of stormwater capture off this project. The picture here is the ancillary benefits, which folks in Onondaga County, in county government, are now saying maybe stormwater is the ancillary benefit. Maybe the real benefit is all of this other cool stuff, like this woman chugging up 200-foot elevation from the downtown back up to the university, working off all the tension of the day. Sometimes I take this path during the summer only, back up from work. But it's a bike path that's curved in, no danger, more protection from vehicular traffic, road diet, more attractive, new streetscape, porous pavers, garden areas, these cute little red light post thingies, stuff that makes people want to be there. In urban environments, this is my first time in Newark, it looks a lot like Syracuse. You want to make people want to be there. This, I don't want to be here. This is Syracuse. That's our, you can't see it, that laser. The big castle thing back there is our city hall. This is dreary, drab, gray. Yes, of course, it's gray and rainy. I mean, that's part of the picture. You see the proactive commercials. This is the before. This is the after. It's sunny and green and lovely, and everyone wants to be there. But part of that is because of the green infrastructure. We redid this streetscape. We're capturing millions of gallons a year. This is one of the streets where the private investment really sprung up along this road, this 2-block road. This infrastructure is also built so that it's capturing all of the water off of all the impervious surfaces you see here, plus the impervious surfaces around the corner onto Erie Boulevard, the major thoroughfare on the other side of those buildings. Smart design allows for porous pavers to visually demarcate the travel lane from the parking lane, so the folks who can't see well anymore, or the kids like me who are too busy texting to drive, can out of the corner of their eye recognize there's a difference in color there. Maybe I shouldn't be driving there. also narrower so folks can cross easier to access their state and local government as well as the museum on this street. Private property, really residential demonstrations are a great way to get people to swallow the 22% rate increase, 25 in Syracuse, by the way, but to also encourage people to help you, again, toward the public good. This is the before, this is the after. Sunny, still sunny, but you notice the difference. Demonstration project, across the street from a park, catty corner to a school. What you don't see here is the sign we designed, so people, when they walk by, can say, something's different here. Why and what and how do I get involved? Tools to plan. Actually, I'm going to skip these because in your folder there's some wonderful documents that are essentially these same ones. So I'll skip these 2 slides to save time because that's what we do. This is our website. I encourage you to go to it and look particularly at the section at the top that says Green scroll down a little bit. I took the wrong screen capture. Look for green projects. All of our project designs are listed, all of the construction specifications, all of the costs, all of the information that you need to create your own project. Print it out, erase the engineer's name, write in your own, submit it, you're good to go. Matt Millay used to say, "These are our plans, please steal them," and he meant it. Of course, they're PDF, so you can't kind of really steal them, but we're giving you a lot of great stuff here. This is an example of some of the high-level information we offer. So funding, that weird email you got from the prince in Uganda, ignore it, not a good source of funding. This guy is also not a good source of funding. I think he actually funded himself right into jail. This is a very long document. I'm sorry the blue doesn't really appear, but this is a very long document, about 126 pages. Really good information here. Bedtime reading if you're an insomniac. This is a great document put out by the EPA, Region 2, that's New England. You can find this on the website down at the bottom. 6-page document, accessible, easy bedtime reading, even if you're not an insomniac, to talk about different ways to fund green infrastructure. You don't have enabling legislation here in New Jersey to do a stormwater district. Neither do we in New York, but that hasn't stopped Ithaca. Starting January 1, they're charging people for stormwater. We'll see how it goes. People in New York think, in the absence of enabling legislation, that must mean it's all right. We'll see who wins that argument. But if Ithaca is successful, they've not been challenged locally yet, then we're going to see a lot of communities in New York begin to start charging for setting up stormwater utilities. And I hope they do. Ithaca is charging $48 per residential unit, residential lot. That could be up to 3 units per lot. And then they do the residential equivalency unit for larger commercial properties. Oh, I'm missing the slide. Well, I'm obviously not missing it, I just didn't include it. One other example I want to share is from Binghamton, New York. So Syracuse is a mid-city. You guys are really mid. We're kind of small mid. We're 147,000. And if we can do this, I think any city in New York can do it. But more importantly, if Binghamton can do it, and I'm kind of from Binghamton, so I get to throw them under the bus a little bit. If Binghamton can do it, anybody can really do it. They're 47,000. They've been flooded out twice. Businesses are hopping the political boundaries every day. They have a 10-year quarter-acre requirement for their stormwater prevention plan, which is stricter than the state, stricter than Syracuse, and people are still building in Binghamton. They actually offer $5,000 to residents to build rain gardens, put in rain barrels, maybe you can put porous pavement in their driveway apron, and they are offering up to $50,000 to businesses to redevelop using green infrastructure. So, there are these programs out there. They're funding that actually through the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. So they have a little bit of a little bit of an extra income there. But there are ways to fund these things locally. It's not that hard, and it's really exciting once you get everybody involved. So thank you. I don't know if I ran over time. I'm sure I did. I'll stop talking.